Welcome, everyone. This is the final workshop in the series of the 7 main female archetypes. I decided to combine the Sage and Mystic archetypes because they're closely connected and have many commonalities, as you will see. So let me share a few words on each. So you want to work with the Sage energy when you need qualities such as wisdom, intuition, and a deep understanding of life. For example, when you need support in seeking spiritual wisdom, mentoring others, making decisions based on intuition, cultivating inner peace, and so on. The sage represents wisdom, knowledge, and insight. She is a seeker of truth and is often seen as the wise woman in her community. She's intellectual, curious, and has a deep desire to understand the world around her. So you want to work, jumping on the mystic. You want to work with the energy of the mystic archetype when qualities such as intuition, spiritual insight, and connection to the mystical realms are desired. So, for example, when you need support with spiritual exploration, connecting with higher consciousness, sacred rituals, ceremony, exploring magical arts, or not magical, mystical arts, but they are magical as well. So all of that. And the mystic archetype is a feminine archetype that represents spiritual seeker, visionary, and the healer. And I can imagine that you probably noticed one is more intellectual while the other one is more spiritual. However, they're both seekers at their core. So they have so many commonalities, as I said. And maybe it's a time to pause before you get to know them more in depth. Which one do you feel more connected to? Just intuitively, or maybe both? What I also want to share is Sage and Mystic archetypes correspond to 6th and 7th chakra. So the 6th chakra, which is here, our third eye chakra, its location is above and between the eyebrows. So organs that are correlated with this one are the pituitary gland and the eyes. The main aspect of the 6th chakra is perception and self-realization. When you have your 6th chakra balanced, your intuition is in place, you have clarity, spiritual awareness, but when it's unbalanced, then you might feel disconnected from intuition. Maybe you're confused, there is poor decision-making, and also ability or difficulty accessing inner wisdom because your mind or your perception might be clouded. And now, in the last chakra that we are discussing here, 7th chakra or crown chakra, the location is on the top of the head, and related organs are the upper skull, cerebral cortex, and pineal gland. And the main aspect of this chakra is spirituality, which you probably might have guessed. So when you have this chakra in balance, your connection to higher consciousness is intact. You might connect to or work with your spiritual enlightenment and you feel inner peace. But when it's unbalanced, there is this disconnection from spirituality, and you might even feel close-minded, because there's like, when we are open to all these different possibilities, but when we are closed, it's almost like our sense of possibilities and connection narrows. And the last thing is we might feel, because of that, even feeling isolated and maybe feeling that we are separated from the whole rather than part of it. That's the big one. Okay, so just to sum it up, the Sage archetype speaks about knowledge, experience, and insight, and the Mystic archetype speaks about the connection to the spiritual realm and a quest for higher meaning and purpose. There are 3 parts of this workshop. On YouTube, I will share the first part only. And if you want to access the rest, I invite you to check the link to my workshop down below in the description box. So those parts are self-awareness, experience, and embodiment. And we'll cover all of them. So the first one is theory, which will provide you with self-awareness. In my opinion, the most important of all. Because if you want to do any work on yourself or on self-development, you will learn that you need to learn about shadow aspect and also get to know yourself. Because without that, you can't really work on anything. Because if you don't see things, you can't work on them. It's just as simple as that. And what we'll do, you will actually learn about the shadow and of these particular archetypes and what happens if they are absent from your life, as well as when you are tapped into their brilliance. And that's the most important thing that you want to focus on. But I'm jumping ahead. So the second part of this workshop is the experiential part. And in this one, you will tap into your subconscious mind, where you can connect to your inner wisdom, where all the answers lie. I'm not kidding. It's really fantastic when you have that, and especially when you nourish that connection with yourself. And usually people love this one the most. And I'm really curious if that will also be your experience. I do hope so. And the last one is action or embodiment. And this one is really on you, because firstly, you want to cultivate what you want more of. And now that once you have self-awareness, and then you bring this, you embody it, you see, okay, so this is where I want it to go, then you want to maintain that. And here is the action step, because without action, there is nothing there. And however, I wanted to say that the emphasis will be on the experiential part, because let's face it, we all lived in this information era where there is so much information out there, and it's firstly we have to discern what's right, what's not, what's good for us, and so on. And sometimes that can be super overwhelming. But what I really want you to do is and these two archetypes actually support that you lean on your internal wisdom and on your internal guidance, because that one cannot fail you. It was designed just for you. And if you know how to use it, how to navigate with it, then I believe that you can't really do anything wrong, if there is such thing as wrong. The last thing is, I want us to apply the knowledge the way we are. The last time I will use that example, when we have a cookbook, and I'm repeating myself, I know, but if we are just reading all the recipes and not doing any, we will be hungry. It's really as simple as that. And do we want that? Well, I don't know. Do you? Let me speak about the intention. I guess we all seek meaning in life for one reason or another. And I want to share this quote from one of my favorite people on earth, Alan Watts. He says, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It's so plain and obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic, as if it was necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. And I found that one so profound. And also what I like to remind myself often is that what is simple isn't necessarily easy. So my intention for you is that you slow down and connect to your inner wisdom, get in touch with that most powerful and wise part of you that has always been there for you to guide you on whichever subject you need guidance on. And before I introduce you to the Sage and Mystic Archetypes, I hope you will love them as much as I do. Let me quickly speak about the shadow. So what is your shadow? It's very simple. Everything you judge, deny, feel ashamed of, or hide is usually related to your shadow. And this can be anything about yourself or about others. It doesn't matter. But what is more important is, how do you get that? And how do you work with it? So let's get into it. So growing up, by the age of 7, what inevitably happens is that certain parts of you start being rejected by either your parents, caregivers, or the environment at large. And that can be simple as, maybe you were a very loud child and someone said, why are you always like that? Or when you were loud, they would ignore you, or anything like that. Maybe you would be punished in any sort of way. So to feel love, safety, and connection, you had to suppress that part, suppress or even deny that you were loud, because that wasn't acceptable. And when that wasn't acceptable, that just means that you didn't get love and you needed love to survive. And that's how shadow appeared. So it's really a survival mechanism. In order for you to survive, when you were a child, you disconnected from your shadow self. And as I mentioned before, or maybe I haven't in this video, but the cure for shadow is embracing those outcasted parts with love and compassion. And why is that? So if they weren't loved from the get-go, how was that helpful to those parts? They couldn't really develop, because also the thing is, in those parts, there is a lot of wisdom and a lot of gifts. So if we embrace those parts, that means that we can work with those. If we reject them, that just means that at some point they will take over, they will give us trouble. But if we do approach them with curiosity, love, and compassion, we can actually work with them. And as well as we can maybe even extract some of the gifts that they're holding. And isn't that fantastic? And the best thing of all of that is that you and only you have the power to do that. I mean, if that isn't self-empowering, I honestly don't know what is. And in this workshop, we will focus on the theme of the Sage and Mystic Archetypes, as well as 6 and 7 chakra. Let's go. So what are the biggest fears for the Sage and Mystic Archetypes? Let's take a look at the Sage first. And I invite you, as I'm listing them, please just pay attention, have this curiosity, and pay attention if anything resonates with you. If there is something that you're like, maybe I have that. Or even, let's say, if someone around you exhibits those qualities, you might even notice that and then have some curiosity around it. Why is that happening? Or how is that happening? Okay, let's take a look. So, Sage. Fear of ignorance. So Sage might have a deep fear of ignorance and a strong desire for knowledge. And they might worry that they don't know enough and that they will, be perceived as unintelligent. And that's what kind of makes them chase information and expertise. Then we have isolation. So the Sage can sometimes become so immersed in their pursuit of knowledge that they isolate themselves from others. And they may also struggle with loneliness or social anxiety, and really just fearing that they won't fit in or that other people won't understand them. So it can be a lonely journey for them. And then we have overemphasis on rationality, because they may struggle to embrace their intuitive and emotional sides, fearing that these aspects of them are irrational or unreliable. and this can disconnect them from their emotions. And I would say not so much intuitive, but more like emotional side, because, you know, intuition can come up with in different ways, but sometimes if a person is very rational, they might negate their emotions or see them as less important, which just speaks about, yeah, that they are not fully integrated in their experience. And I'm not saying that emotions are more important, it's just that they also carry messages, and it's not about just having our thoughts that or having rational explanation for everything, because we know that the world doesn't work this way. Okay, so Sage can also be a perfectionist. So they may have this tendency towards perfectionism, striving for flawless knowledge and expertise, which can lead them just being stuck in a fear of failure. Then we have difficulties in communicating complex ideas. And that can be a challenge too, because their deep knowledge and insight may get not understood. Maybe or misunderstood rather. So they may fear that their ideas might be dismissed. And then we have balancing knowledge and action. So I think that's a big one. They must be careful not to be, as they say, armchair philosopher who never put their wisdom into practice. And this kind of goes to my example of a cookbook, or even someone who just reads all those books and knowledge, and it's almost like they hoard everything and they're not sharing. And then the question is, how is this helpful for everyone? Imagine that, yeah, someone would be getting all these resources and not sharing them with others. Like, why? How is that of use to everyone, or except themselves? Okay, so let's jump into Mystic now. So Mystic, on the other hand, may also have fear of rejection but for different reasons. They might feel, other people will reject or ridicule their spiritual beliefs, experiences, or unconventional practices. So they might feel reluctant to share their insights. They also feel lonely because, again, they might have these experiences of being on their inner journey, which can be very profound. And that can be a lonely journey. And especially if others don't share the same insights or the same experiences, they might feel isolated. Then we have balancing the mundane and spiritual. So for Mystic, they may struggle to balance their deep spiritual experiences with the practical aspects of daily life, such as work, relationship, responsibilities. They might be really hard. And overwhelm is a big one too. So the depth of spiritual journey can be overwhelming, right? And Mystic may face challenges in processing and integrating their experiences, which just lead them to, feelings of confusion and chaos. And here, it's really important that everything is in balance, because one can have so many spiritual experiences, but at the end of the day, we live on this planet in 3D reality. So how can we bridge those? Because this knowledge and spiritual insights are fantastic. This is amazing, such a powerful resource to have, but it's also how to apply it to this earthly plane. Then we have transcending ego. Mystics often seek to transcend the ego and connect with a higher consciousness, which is great. However, the process of ego dissolution can be challenging and, may evoke fear, resistance, and a sense of losing one's identity. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced that when they had these profound shifts, and some people call that dark night of the soul, when they really lost their, at least a part of their identity, and were in that empty space where they had to build things from the scratch. And that can be a very terrifying place, but it's also a place of unlimited possibilities. So yeah, embracing both. And we are talking about the fear, but yeah, that's one of their biggest fears. And the last one is integration of insights. So they often receive profound insights and spiritual wisdom, as I mentioned. So the challenge really lies in integrating these insights into practical, actionable guidance for themselves and others. Yeah, let me know if anything, or maybe just check in with yourself if anything resonated with you. And just be kind and gentle with yourself. That's really important, because nothing is bad. We are all programmed in the best way to survive. So, and sometimes that's just not the most efficient way. It's just the only way that we know how to. And let's take a look at the Sage and Mystic Archetype shadow aspect. I love this one. So let's look at the Sage first. So the Sage shadow side is when a woman manifests, or for a woman can manifest as intellectual arrogance or dogmatism, or an over-reliance on logic and reason at the expense of intuition and emotion. And I would probably more say that at the expense of emotion rather than intuition, because I find that this archetype still works a lot with intuition. It's more about their wisdom, that is wisdom that comes from their experience, but they can be disconnected from their emotions, as I said. So what can happen is that she can be rigid in her thinking, insisting that her way is the only way, and dismissing other perspectives or approaches as inferior. So that's something to just keep an eye on, if that is an archetype that you closely relate to. So another one is when the sage is overly focused on intellectual pursuits and may isolate or detach from the world around her, and may neglect her relationships and her physical and emotional needs. And this, again, can lead to emptiness and disconnection. And we also mentioned isolation, right? When a person isolates themselves and just really believes that no one actually understands them, no one really cares, or even no one is as passionate about their subject. And that's really a shadow aspect, actually, because the theme is they're disconnected. That's the gist of it. And then again, when the mind takes over, when the mind is too vivid, not vivid, but it's too overactive, is when they become overcritical. So the shadow sage can be excessively critical of themselves and others. Another one is analysis paralysis. So sage in their shadow may overanalyze situations to the point of indecision. And instead of really just taking a step back, connecting to their bodies, and maybe just dropping in their bodies and connecting to their emotions and really seeing the thing holistically, or whatever problem they're facing with, they can over-rationalize it, and then they start spinning in a circle. Okay. This one is quite self-explanatory. Lack of emotional intelligence. So they may neglect, or the sage may neglect their emotional or her emotional intelligence and really focus on intellectual pursuits. And we have difficulty communicating complex ideas, which I already talked about in the first part. And the last one is that, this one I find it's really important to mention, is that the sage can be tempted to use knowledge and information as a means of control or manipulation. And this can manifest as a desire to hoard knowledge or to use it to gain power over others, rather than using it to empower and uplift those around her. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Some people they can hoard money, some people can hoard food, clothes, whatever. But sage actually hoards information, or can hoard information, I should say. Okay, let's take a look at the shadow of Mystic. So Mystic has delusion and escapism, which I probably believe doesn't come as a surprise, right? Because they may detach from the reality of everyday life. And yeah, can seem to or can lead to delusional thinking, unrealistic expectations, and tendency to escape into the mystical realm to avoid facing practical responsibilities. And I'm just wondering, has anyone ever been there? I know I have. So yeah, sometimes, and it's nothing wrong if that is occasional. That's also very important. You know, we all do everything here, but the thing is, if that's our only way of coping with things, or if some things get out of control. So just checking in with that. And again, be compassionate, be kind to yourself. That's so important. All right. Then we have spiritual arrogance. So, or spiritual superiority, because mystic may believe that she and her mystical experience makes her more enlightened or spiritual advanced than others, which can lead to arrogance and lack of humanity, actually. And yeah, maybe just checking in if that was at some point your experience, or maybe someone, just as an awareness practice. Then we have fear of the mundane. So, as I mentioned, mystic may fear or reject the ordinary aspects of life, seeing and perceiving them as mundane and unworthy of attention, which can result in neglect of practical matters and really lack of grounding. Then we have unhealthy attachment to mystical experiences, which makes sense. Everything in extreme can be unhealthy. So if they, let's say, for example, are chasing certain experiences, they can actually be addicted to those, and that's, again, it's not about seeking the next spiritual high, it's rather integrating their insights. That's so important. And then it can also be avoidance of shadow work. So mystic can avoid confronting their own unresolved emotional issues, or shadow aspect. That's also an option. And then we have spiritual materialism. And again, when they're attached to spiritual or esoteric symbols or practices, and just using those to booster or bolster their self-esteem. Then we have manipulation, and I think I already shared that. It's kind of connected to the sage. It's just, again, misusing their spiritual insights, intuitive abilities to manipulate and deceive others for personal gain or control. And then the last one is chasing hidden knowledge. And again, I think that one also ties to just chasing next spiritual high. So yeah, here is also when conspiracy theories and beliefs can rise up and just take over. Just something, again, to be mindful of. Oh, and I forgot to mention that one, lack of discernment. So it's almost like they're so much in their mystical experiences or supernatural that they forget to evaluate also other aspects of life, which are maybe more, just more practical. And that can actually lead them to be vulnerable to outside manipulation. So again, something to be mindful for. And I'm just wondering, just checking with yourself if any of the shadow aspect resonated with you, or if you know someone who exhibit those. And it's not about judgment or anything like that. It's really more about, it's about having awareness of that, especially self-awareness, compassion, curiosity, and just knowing, okay, now I know that. And of course, certain feelings of maybe shame or guilt or whatever may arise because that's just part of the shadow. But then it's the next question is more, okay, so how do I go with it? How do I work with that? All right, let's now look at what happens if there is lack of connection to either sage or mystic. Because the thing is, we might also be disconnected from a certain archetype. And the reason most probably is because in the past, we might have either we were discouraged to do so, or in the outside world, we saw that that wasn't the best idea. If people pursued certain behaviors, they got in trouble, and we maybe vowed that we will never do certain things, or maybe that was unsafe for us. So let's take a look at that. Okay, a lack of connection to the sage. So limited intellectual curiosity, which makes sense. If we might lose interest or in seeking knowledge and just be curious about things and other opinions. Then difficulties in mentorship roles. And here's more what I mean by that is, maybe it's hard for the sage archetype to really, or someone who doesn't have it, I'm sorry, to step into mentorship role and share wisdom and guidance with others, because they might not feel confident or connected to that part. Then we have struggles with decision making, and I understand that can also be part of paralysis analysis. However, in this case, is because we just don't have informed decisions, or because we don't have curiosity. It's almost like, we are limited, and maybe we think, there's just like one option for us, or maybe two, and we don't tend to explore what is out there, or even ask for help. Okay, and then that kind of leads to, or it's tied to, limited interest in learning and growth, which makes sense, right? And then less emphasis on rational thinking, which I also believe it's kind of goes hand in hand here. Because without this connection, a woman may maybe really rely on her emotions, which is actually nice. But the thing is, emotions can overwhelm her or overtake her ability to have reason also, and apply reason to everything that she's experiencing, which affects, obviously, decision making. Okay, when we have lack of connection to the mystic archetype, what happens is we can have reduced intuition or spiritual insight. And when I say reduced intuition, that just means that it's not that we don't have intuition, it's just that we don't connect to it, or we believe that we cannot connect to it. It's just not on our forefront. We don't think it's important. And then difficulty in navigating the unseen realm. So maybe we just take things at face value and don't think that there might be actually other things that are, beyond what we can see, sense, or feel with our five senses. Then less engagement in spiritual practices, which makes sense. We might even avoid, just having mindfulness practices, and maybe prayer, meditation, rituals, anything. And the last one, which is also makes sense, reduce connection to higher consciousness. And I would say that that's not that connection is not there, but we are just not paying attention to it. We are not concerned with that, we don't have this need to explore it and also reap the benefits of it. Okay, let's flip the coin now and see the brilliance and all of that. So, what is the sage and mystic biggest challenge that can become her biggest gift? Let's talk about the sage first. So the biggest challenge for a woman embodying the sage archetype is to balance her intellect and knowledge with emotional intelligence, which, what I was talking about. So she needs to recognize as what intellect and knowledge and wisdom are great, but they also, this is not the only means of understanding and navigating the world. So when she synthesizes information and makes connection between seemingly disparate ideas and distill complex concepts into clear and accessible language, then she can combine this analytical ability with emotional intelligence and intuition, and she can offer profound insights and guidance to those around her. She can really be fully tapped into her wisdom. And just check in with yourself how that resonates, because she can share her wisdom with others in a way that is both intellectually rigorous and deeply compassionate. And that's really superpower. You want that. I don't know, I just love it. Okay, let's talk about mystic. So the challenge is balancing mystical and mundane, and the gift is bridging spirituality and practical wisdom, right? When mystic encounters profound spiritual insights and a deep connection to the inner self and the universe, so this experience can be so captivating and transformative that the mystic may find it challenging to navigate the practical aspects of life, right? Such as work, relationships, day-to-day responsibility, just some things that are, oh my God, so boring. And the challenge lies in integrating this mystical experience into a grounded, balanced, and purposeful life. So even, let's say, washing dishes can become a mystical experience, because it's, even though it looks mundane, it's a very, very simple and great practice how to tap into, just our mindfulness, the gift. So when mystic successfully navigates this challenge, she becomes a bridge between spiritual and the practical realms. And that just so powerful. So she can translate her profound insights into practical wisdom that benefits not only herself, but also others. So her gift is the ability to bring a deeper understanding of spirituality, of the life, into material world. And don't we need that? I would say yes. Obviously, you have your own opinion, which is valid. So the mystic's biggest challenge, when overcome, allows her to serve as a guide, mentor, and a source of inspiration for those seeking to connect with their own spirituality while still leading fulfilling and purposeful lives in the physical world. Isn't that just magical and practical? Okay, so that leads us to brilliance. And again, I will address Sage first. So brilliance in the Sage archetype for women manifests as wisdom, insight, and the ability to see beyond surface level information, to grasp the underlying patterns and connections that tie things together. So a woman who embodies the Sage archetype may have a remarkable ability to make complex ideas accessible to others, offer insights that inspire breakthroughs and transformation, and help people see the bigger picture or multiple perceptions of the same story. I love that so much. I just can't contain myself. I find it so powerful. So Sage is often seen as a thought leader and a teacher, and her brilliance may manifest through her ability to inspire and educate others. And one of her biggest contributions is her unique perspective and ability to provide clarity and understanding. So to sum it up, the brilliance of the Sage archetype for women is the ability to use knowledge and insight to guide and inspire others, to help them see beyond their current limitations, and to open up new possibilities for growth and transformation. I love Sage. Let's take a look at the mystic. So we have intuitive wisdom. So mystic possesses this heightened sense of intuition, inner knowing. She can tap into the wisdom of herself and the universe, offering guidance and insight that goes beyond rational understanding. Then we have mystical experiences, healing and transformation. So she has the potential to facilitate healing and transformation in herself and others through her spiritual insights. Then we have inspiration. So just her connection to spiritual realm can inspire others to explore their own spiritual realms or path. And then compassion and empathy. creative expression. So she can be super creative and use art, music, writing, or other forms of expression as an outlet for her insights. Then connection to the divine feminine. So she has a strong connection to the divine feminine, which represents qualities such as, again, intuition, nourishing, receptivity, or nurturing, receptivity, interconnectedness. Then we have spiritual guidance, holistic perspective, peace and serenity. Despite the challenges of the spiritual journey, she can often radiate inner peace and serenity, and really serves as a guide, spiritual guide, mentor, or teacher, helping others on their own spiritual journey by offering wisdom and support. And I love this archetype so much as well. How about you? Okay, now you've learned all about Mystic and Sage. So what do you do with all this information? So here's my suggestion. Number 1, pay attention when fierce and shadow attributes present themselves and be curious about them. As we said in the beginning, please don't push them down. Don't, outcast them. They have been already. Don't deny them. Don't shame them. Just don't do that. But what I want you to do is be kind, loving, and curious, like a little child, like, oh, what is that? And ask those parts, what do you need from me to feel safe? Because, as I said, this part just doesn't feel safe. That's all there is. So if you could give that part safety, how would that part behave, or what would be your relationship to it? So explore that. And number 2, which I find even more important, in the next 14 days, I want you to notice all the times when you do exhibit brilliance of these archetypes. So this way you can reinforce those qualities you wish to cultivate more of, and really recognize that you actually that they are in you and you possess them. You might just not be paying attention. They're not separate. They're in you. So pay attention, acknowledge that, and you might even ask a friend if they can share anytime you're either intuitive or you're inspiring or anything like that. So yeah, do that. Or maybe you can, in the end of the day, you can journal about it and just notice all the times that you've done that for yourself. Okay. The thing is, your brilliance is such a powerful gift that you can, noticing that is such a powerful gift that you can give to yourself. So really commit to that. Commit to acknowledging your greatness and your role in this world, because it really matters. So for those of you who want to dive deeper and are committed to make lasting changes that happen when you work on the level of the subconscious mind, which is 95 or 90 to 95% of our entire mind, which is a lot, right? I invite you to check my training, 7 Main Female Archetypes. So check in the link in the description box down below. And thank you so much for watching, and send you all of my love.